Hi, my name is Samir Khan, and I just wanted to start off by welcoming everyone to the AIM 2021 conference and to my session on governance and compliance in M365 and SharePoint. Obviously, this is a very broad subject to cover in such a short session, but I will try to highlight some of the key areas. First off, I am the VP of Product Development at Helix Systems. Helix Systems is a Microsoft Gold partner, and we are a preferred partner of the Microsoft Content Services program. We are members of the AIM Leadership Council and are launch partners for Microsoft AI-enabled Project Cortex. We've also developed two products, Themis IA and Themis ICE. Over the years, we've helped organizations in both the public and private sector across North America and Europe, and we maintain a strong ecosystem of partners to help you implement your solution. So today we're going to go on a digital transformation journey, and I'll be your tour guide. We don't have a lot of time, as I previously mentioned in this session, so we're going to try to keep things very high level. We're going to see how we can go from content chaos to a platform that will empower your users. We will see that by leveraging M365 out-of-the-box technologies and Helix tools, this journey can be made with much less effort than previously required. So let's start with content chaos. Why is it such a big deal, and why should we be concerned? It's because of the content monster. This is a result of content being scattered over various systems like shared drives or maybe a records management system, and even tools on the internet like Dropbox. Of course, there will be raw and misclassified documents, as well as a lot of unstructured content. As a result, no one in the organization has a real understanding of where these documents are being stored or even how they are being shared. This could potentially lead to legal issues. For example, if a document that was destroyed as part of a retention schedule actually has a duplicate copy on the shared drive, the organization would be forced to provide this document in a legal case or in a Freedom of Information Act request. It's also difficult to manage security in this chaos. Anyone can send out sensitive information, to either internal or external people. Your M365 adoption will also suffer. If we just move the problem from, let's say, your shared drive to SharePoint Online, we haven't done anything other than move our problem to the cloud. All the inefficiencies and issues that were in your shared drive will now just be on Microsoft 365 platform. Content will still be unorganized and it will still be difficult to find. User productivity will also decrease. If users are unable to find the latest versions of documents that they require in a timely manner, they won't be as productive. And all the rot translates into extra storage space, which does have a cost, as well as it needs to be managed. Content chaos really stems from the massive amount of documents that are created every year, and how that vast majority are stored in a very inefficient manner. This results in 85% of these documents that are never even looked at again. Of all the documents created, 50% of those documents would be considered duplicates. I've seen these convenience copies pop up all the time in shared drives, and this is because of either permissions issues or it's just easier to keep a copy in a location that you like as opposed to trying to find the original. Of the documents created, 60% are considered obsolete. So of course you can imagine the management nightmare that all these documents can create. No one really knows what documents are, which is a major risk for a corporation and can lead to legal issues and make Freedom of Information Act requests difficult to manage. So what does this mean to workers? Well, knowledge workers spend about 30% of their time finding information that they need to do their work. Not only do workers not know where to look for a document, they don't know what the latest version is. I'm sure we've all come across a file labeled something like Budget Report Final and another one called Budget Report Final. That's both a big loss with regards to both time and money for the worker and the organization. In fact, it can cost upwards of $25 million for an organization with 1,000 of these knowledge workers. Now that we've identified the chaos, let's try to tame this monster. The first step is by designing an information architecture. This will provide us a structure to properly store our content so that it's easy for workers to find and edit. Information architecture covers many areas, such as navigation and user experience, content classification, and giving context to the digital content. The information architecture has 4 steps to tame the content chaos monster. The first step is to organize the information using metadata to give context to the content. Using SharePoint, we can create sites and libraries to organize all of the content. Metadata can be used to further tag that data so that it can be spliced and diced in different views to cater to different needs. Now, your data will be able to work the way your information workers want and not the other way around. Metadata can also help improve information governance, compliance, and thus reduce risk. Data that is correctly identified and tagged can be properly classified and managed. The next key is to properly secure access to sensitive information with the correct permissions. Permissions can be applied to SharePoint sites and libraries. Because the data is properly organized along these permission levels, it's very easy to set up and manage, ensuring that people only have access to the information that they are supposed to. Search and web parts are also security trimmed to ensure that workers can only see the information that they have access to at any given time. We can also set up an audit log as well to further ensure that proper information security is being maintained. Sensitivity labels can also be leveraged in Microsoft 365 to ensure that data is being properly stored and handled throughout the organization on the entire M365 platform. This will ensure that company data is protected from being accidentally sent to someone who is not supposed to have access to the content, whether that person is internal or external. Finally, the rules in the information architecture provide AI the ability to auto-classify the content, something we will touch on a bit later when we talk about SharePoint syntax and Viva topics. All these combine together to provide users with a cohesive experience that will save both time and money. Now that our information architecture is completed, we can leverage it to ensure proper governance and compliance. Content can now be properly tagged and labeled so that retention can be correctly applied to the content. Of course, M365 e-discovery tools can also be used for things like legal holds or Freedom of Information Act requests. Okay, so now we've created and implemented our information architecture. We are ready to start migrating our content. A decision now needs to be made on what content will actually be moved and the age of the content that should be moved. The reality is information workers do not care as much as we would like them to care about records management. Luckily, AI can be used to help fill this gap. Information architecture is vital. Knowledge and information is meaningless without context, and a solid information architecture is a foundational part of having strong AI experiences. As Naomi Moneypenny shared in her session, any investment that you make in information architecture will pay dividends in AI, helping to give it structure, helping to give it seeding, and actually promoting a much better experience. AI can use the information architecture's rules to assess the business value of the content and auto-classify that content. The AI can extract metadata based on the content in the document and then tag the document with that metadata. I won't go too deep into this subject because it really is a different presentation. But suffice to say, we can train AI such as SharePoint syntax and Themis ICE to go through the unstructured content and begin to auto-classify content based on the rules that we have written. Content can then be enriched using these classification rules as well as the metadata extracted from the document. With a good IA structure, you will get a higher auto-classification accuracy rate. Viva Topics is able to use the AI to surface the right information at the right time for the right people, further enabling workers to spend more time actually working. The AI can also provide rot analysis on this content to remove content that is no longer needed. Now we can begin migrating the content within the SharePoint sites and libraries that were created as part of the information architecture. This process ensures that the new environment won't have the same issues and pitfalls that existed in the content chaos. Tools like Themis Ice can then be used to take this extracted information and ensure that the content gets migrated to the correct locations. Now that we have tamed the chaos monster and moved into a structured environment using SharePoint and AI, we can begin to tackle the records management piece. Microsoft 365 uses labels for both protecting content as well as for retention. Sensitivity labels can be set on content to ensure that any sensitive data like social security numbers or credit cards are not shared outside the organization. Policies can be created in M365 to supervise and monitor communications going in and out of the organization to ensure compliance. Retention schedules are an important part of compliance, and M365 uses retention labels to ensure that documents are kept for the required amount of time. M365 has 3 types of retention labels. The first are regular labels and would be applied to things that are not considered records. This would be things like reference documents that should be deleted 2 years after last modified. The second type is record labels. This is the way Microsoft recommends you do records management, and it allows you to make changes to the metadata of the records. Records can also be unlocked so that changes can be made to the record itself for the purpose of versioning the record. This makes things like superseding a little bit easier of a policy to manage. In this case, SharePoint actually stores the original record in a different location so that the organization is still fully compliant. The third type of label is a regulatory label, which is more like the traditional record that most are probably used to. In this case, the record is immutable and cannot be altered, and that includes its metadata as well. M365 allows you to do event-driven retention as well as case-based retention. M365 also has the ability to manage these labels using a file plan and provides disposition reports to ensure your organization is compliant. M365 Content Services is really a great platform which allows users to easily create and share content in a secured and managed space. Metadata will allow them to manipulate their data, but can also be leveraged to ensure proper governance and compliance. Users can collaborate using the tools that they are used to, like Word and Excel, as well as tools that can further enhance that experience, like SharePoint and Teams, while at the same time ensuring that governance and compliance policies are maintained and enforced throughout the platform. Tools like SharePoint Syntax and Viva Topics use AI to ensure that users don't have to search for the content, but instead it's readily available when they need it. And the best part of the platform is it's always expanding and getting better. We've now finished our journey and have shown how to tame our content chaos. It starts by discovering the contents that's there and creating the proper information architecture. Once that is completed, we can leverage AI to do a rot analysis and content enrichment. Content can then be migrated in an intelligent manner and have retention policies applied. Finally, SharePoint Syntax and Viva Topics can be leveraged to highlight topics that are useful to the organization. We've gone from content chaos to a platform where information workers can now fully benefit from the M365 environment and spend more time actually doing their work. We can leverage Themis IA to help quickly build out your SharePoint sites with the proper information architecture. We can then use Themis Ice to leverage SharePoint Syntax to do the rot analysis and content migration. This set of tools will help make your journey a much, much more smoother one. Thus concludes my session. Thank you for attending. Below you'll find the contact information for Helix, as well as our social media handles.